New draw. Oh God, it's all of them. Okay. Okay. Cool. Alrighty, let's start with the crossover banner first, because this is the real reason why we're here, right? First and foremost, let's go ahead and jump into the actual try-on here. They changed these. So there's been updates to all of the outfits and I think 3 of the 4 weapons. So we're gonna have to go through this bit by bit. This Final Fantasy VI segment's gonna be on its own, and then we'll go into the featured banner in a separate video. But the Locke sword is now only 3 ATB, and at OB6 it does go to high now, which is much better than what it was before. Before OB6 plus, it went mid to high, which is still good, but it wasn't like perfect, right? You had to cast it twice in order to get the maximum effect, and they didn't decrease the duration either. That's crazy, dude. This is significantly better now. So they didn't decrease the damage, they didn't decrease the duration, they increased the actual potency, so it's not mid to high anymore, it's high to high, and they decreased how much ATB it costs. They kept its R abilities the same, which are both pretty solid because it's good for both magic and physical, although much like when we talked about Cloud's Lock Sword to begin with, all of those damage types for Cloud at this moment in time are all physical, so having split R abilities at this point, not very good. But it does make it kind of future-proof and allows you to have a Magic Fire, Magic Ice, and Magic Lightning weapon and use this as an offhand weapon, which is great. The reason why this is so much better now is because they did not decrease the damage. And so when you look at something in Cloud's kit specifically, when you look at other non-elemental options that Cloud has access to, his highest DPSing non-elemental weapon is the Zidane sword at OB10, which does 1300%. So 1300% is around 350% damage per ATB, right? It's 325, my bad, 325. 325 per ATB. The 1010 divided by 3 is 336 damage per ATB. To put that in perspective, that -1 ATB just made Locke Sword do more non-elemental damage than Zidane Sword. That's how much of a big deal that is. So when you spend 12 ATB with your Locke Sword, assuming that that is your primary non-elemental damage, right? That's 336.66 repeating times 12 ATB. You're doing about 4,300 or 4,039% of your physical elemental damage or physical stat as non-elemental damage. If you're using it with the Zidane sword at 12 ATB, you're doing about 3,900. So what that means is that it's only slightly stronger, but it also gives your character, right, +3 elementals to all of the like fire, ice, and lightning that it does, right? Obviously, the R abilities are better on the Zidane sword than they are on the Locke sword when it comes to the actual effects. So if you're trying to use it for non-elemental damage, it's this is clearly the better option. However, the Locke sword is legitimately stronger per ATB now, so that's food for thought. If you already have it, like your boy does, this is a huge buff. I will tell you that I don't think this moves the needle for Cloud enough to justify pulling for the weapon other than getting it to OB0, because at OB0 it's just mid, right? Which is all you were getting at OB6 anyways, right? And one copy of this is great because this increases his damage by quite a bit and it makes Cloud a lot more usable in today's meta. I will say that the truth of it is that there's ways to give your team, your individual characters, fire and ice damage up at this point. It's a little limited at the moment because right now it's only the Luminary Sword for Matt that increases fire damage, and there are 2 currently options that increase ice damage in the game, in both the Scimitar for Sid and the Cedric Wand for Aerith, right? But there are options for both of those. There is currently, outside of the summons, no way to increase lightning damage. So this does make Cloud's Murasame build pop off a little bit more consistently with a bit more damage. So if you're really struggling with lightning, this is an option. It's a very good weapon overall. I've used this quite a bit. This does make Cloud a bit better in terms of just overall DPS, because right now Cloud is kind of far behind the other DPSs in the game. Not only because he doesn't have access to an exploit weakness weapon, but just because his DPS weapons are just a little bit lower in damage. Right now, his best DPS availability is Magic Wind. And even then, I think Sephiroth has kind of gapped him at this point. So he doesn't even have that anymore, which is kind of a bummer. So it's definitely going to continue to be course corrected over the next couple of months. I do think they're going to end up giving Cloud some new featured weapons that'll probably increase his DPS overall. But again, overall, this is a very solid weapon. Do I think it's the strongest in the list? We'll have to see what the other changes are. I do think that this makes this a lot more intriguing and a lot more interesting than it did before. Before, obviously, I just pulled on it because I wanted my Cloud to be usable or to be useful, and I felt like this was the only way for him to get there. And I was right for the most part. So, so obviously, I pulled pretty deep on the last time this came around, so I don't need to pull for this again. And I'm just grateful that my now OB6 plus sword gives high instead of mid to high. So I only have to cast it once. It only costs 3 ATB, which is a huge buff, and it's pretty good. The Locke's outfit also went from 10 points of physical and magic ward to 15 points, which means it went to 20% instead of 15. So that's all it is. So instead of 15%, it's 20%. That's across the board. We don't have to look at the other outfits. They're all going to be exactly the same outside of this defense increase, right? So that's good, obviously. 20% is a huge physical and magic defense. That's great. Physical ability mastery is not very good. It's fine. 15% extra damage is fine. But for folks who have been paying attention the last couple of months, or if you've been pulling on banners the last couple of months, you've seen that even those banners have a 20% buff. And that's without using the element, they're getting 20%. So this physical ability mastery it's still extra damage. It's fine. And if you have a stage where you don't need an arcanum and you need a little bit of extra damage and some defensive capabilities, it's fine. It's a decent outfit. It's not terrible. It's fine. So that's Cloud. Let's jump to Tifa. I'm so scared. I have no idea what they did to her saving claws. I will tell you that before, these were not very good, right? These were not very good. They were just kind of used to do an AoE set damage clear. It was kind of like the Bahamut Greatsword. They were okay, right? It did the AoE damage and that was it. I don't know what they changed. That's what I was afraid of. Okay, so before, this was low to high. And you had to cast this 3 times to get to high, even at OB6, if I recall correctly. And now at OB6, this gives her a mid to high increase for her physical attack and magic attack, while also dealing flat damage to the entire enemy team and having mixed R abilities. So the good news here is that the situation's changed, right? So like this would have been good in November when it first came out, right? It would have been very good in November when it first came out. And that's the truth. It would have been. It was a nice mixed damage option to be able to like self buff, allow her to get her own physical and magic attack up, allow her to then start DPSing immediately. Because before you had to cast it 3 times, you were only gonna have it for like 1 singular attack for your elemental attack. And then you went back to buffing yourself again, which was not very efficient, right? Since then, Tifa has not only gotten a exploit weakness weapon that far exceeds the importance of what this weapon does for her, but she's also gotten an ultimate weapon that starts her off with physical and magic attack up +3. And a lot of folks, not me, but a lot of folks have access to that already. If you don't, this is still neat, but this is kind of niche. And if you have her exploit weakness weapon already, you're going to struggle to find a spot to put this on, right? It's great for clearing early game content. So if you don't have the Bahamut Greatsword, this is another great option, just like the Sephiroth Blade of the Worthy that did the AoE set damage. It helps you clear early game content. It helps you clear events really easily. Other than that though, this is a buff. It is better than it was before. But the situation has changed so drastically for Tifa and her build specifically that I don't see a world where she'll ever want to carry this over the exploit weakness weapon. The only spot that would be the case is if you're running into a non-elemental boss fight where you want non-elemental damage specifically, then she would use the Sabin claws instead of the exploit weakness weapon, the Daffodil gloves. And even then, like, there may be a better sub weapon in that case as well. But this is that's the end of it. I think this is probably still, of the 4 weapons available, I think this is probably the weakest now. It was already kind of close between this and Locksword to begin with. So it's, but the Locksword is significantly better now than it was before. This is not enough of a buff. I thought it was going to go to high at OB6, and it's just mid to high. It is worth noting that at OB0, this is still pretty good. Like, increasing her physical and magic attack to mid is pretty good. Oh, I see. Physical attack is mid to mid, but magic attack is low to mid. And that the mid to high, it goes up mid to high at OB6. Okay, so the magic attack actually stays at low. Yeah, I would steer clear of this. Outside of just like nostalgia's sake, if you want to pull for like a 3-star copy, so you can upgrade it later or just have it for transmog. I get it. But this is pretty weak, right? I think we can all agree this is pretty weak. Especially with the way that like the weapons that Tifa's gotten over the last 6 months. This has been significantly outclassed, and this wasn't even that good to begin with. So I have no trouble saying not to pull for this. Same exact thing, right? Physical ability mastery is not that great, and then 20% defense is good, but Tifa has outfits that also have 15 to 20% defenses already, right? And you probably have them, if we're being honest. So overall, this is a pretty easy skip, which is unfortunate because I actually love this outfit. I love how they made her look with the Sabin look. I think they pulled off the Sabin look really well with Tifa. I think they did a great job with this. I know I was in the minority of that to begin with, but I actually like this outfit a lot. Moving to Aerith. Aerith is the only one that actually didn't get a change. At OB6, she does AoE, high fire, ice, and lightning resist down, which is absolutely fantastic. Super, really good R abilities. And well, Cure All Materia Slot. This is the best weapon of the 4 in terms of just like usability. This has been useful even at OB0. I'm still using this today. So Terra's Rod is very good. There's nothing in the game in the featured pool that even comes close to being able to have this much utility built in. So this is a very useful weapon. If you don't even have, I'm telling you right now, at OB0 I use this a ton because it can go mid to high. Right at OB0, this goes mid to high. That's really all you need, and like it's nice to be able to get it to high at OB6, but even at OB0, the amount of utility this provides is ridiculous. Right, having a Cure All Materia slot, being able to go mid to high on all the resist down and an area of effect as well. This has not been outclassed. I don't know that it ever will. It probably, I shouldn't say it like that. It's not going to be outclassed for a while, right? Being able to lower 3 different resists in an area of effect with really good supportive R abilities and boost HP and buff debuff extend and a Cure All Materia slot. This is just a fantastic weapon, right? Not much has changed with the Riot Blade, or with Terra's Rod rather. This is still very strong, and it's still worth having at least 1 copy. If you do not have a copy of this I actually do recommend pulling at least 1. Terra's Garb, again, physical and magic ward, the 20% extra defenses is great. Obviously, as we've talked about already, Aerith has a lot of options for defenses already that have released this year even. So this may not be super useful, but if you haven't gotten any of those other outfits, it's still very good. And then buff extension plus, unlike the other 2 jokers who only get 15% extra damage, 60% effect duration on away from, like, separate from the actual buff debuff weapon ability is fantastic. So of the 3 outfits that we've reviewed so far, this is clearly by far and away the best one of the 3. And it is also just in general a good outfit, right? Which is great too. But yeah, this outfit's very good. 20% defenses and an additional 60% to your buffy do buff extend is very good. So no difficulty telling you or recommending Aerith at this point. Both the weapon and the outfit are both very good. The outfit less so, but still very good. And the Terra Rod, like I said, even a single copy can make a lot of content a lot easier for you. And last but certainly not least, we have Edgar's Coiled Blade. So they did not change the actual effect on this one, But what they did was they upped the magic attack from 46 to 62. So what this does is it allows Sephiroth to main hand Edgar's Coiled Blade and have maxed out magic attack, which is actually pretty important. Sephiroth has since gotten an exploit weakness weapon that does not have magic attack. It is attack and ability potency, which is mixed damage for his mixed damage kit. But he didn't really have a whole lot of space for magic attack sub-weapons because those sub-weapons were usually given away to either the other supports, to the other DPS if you were running a sub DPS. There wasn't a lot of like, or the other magic damage weapon that, or had magic attack and water potency that you wanted to give to Sephiroth was the green megaphone, which lowers water resist because Cait Sith lowers water resist. So you really didn't want to take that away from Cait. So I do like that they up the magic attack. That makes him very self-sufficient. It means that he can put on all of the ridiculous amount of boost HP weapons that are available in water, as well as the couple of boost attack weapons that are in water, and it increases his overall DPS by quite a bit. So I think this is a pretty solid buff. The damage itself was always very good. It's still the highest water magic damage weapon in the game, so that hasn't changed. It will continue to be the highest water magic damage weapon in the game for a while. If I had to guess, I don't think we'll see one outclass this for a while, because I don't see them buffing this and then immediately turning around and releasing a brand new water weapon. I think that'd be pretty weird. So pretty solid, good materia slots, good damage, good R abilities. This is a very solid weapon. And then the Edgar's attire, they increased this to 20% while also having the old Arcanum, which is a 35% damage boost instead of the 50. So worth noting that that is a little bit weaker than the newer outfits. However, Sephiroth is by far and away the best magic water damage dealer, and I would argue almost close to being one of the better water damage dealers in the game. The only reason that he isn't is I think Yuffie outclasses him ever so slightly. Like ever so slightly. It's close. Very, very strong still. Very, very strong still. No negatives here. It's very, very good, right? It's very, very good. Of the four, I do think that Aerith is the highest priority in terms of the weapon itself. If you're trying to pull for an outfit and a weapon, I do think that Sephiroth adds a lot of value to your team. And I think that Aerith has other outfits that you can get away with not prioritizing the Terra garb. You can probably use one of the other outfits that you have for Aerith at this point. For newer players, if you've been playing for a while, at the end of the day, Aerith provides the most value for your team in terms of just being able to, you know, keep buffs and debuffs on, which is something that Aerith does consistently, right? Keeping Aerith alive is very important, and the Terra Rod lowering resist of 3 of the 6 elements is very, 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 very good, right? So if you're a newer player, Aerith is a pretty solid choice. If you're a relatively newer player, meaning you've been playing since like just after the Final Fantasy VI event, maybe you started at New Year's, I do think that the Sephiroth banner Sephiroth portion of this is pretty strong. Not saying that that means it's a must pull. I do think that eventually we will see more water weapons. I just am concerned at this point at Win, right? Because we had one in February. I don't see them running any other water weapon attacks, but we don't know for sure, right? We'll have to wait and see. But for now, it's very, very strong. I think both of these outfits and weapons are very, very good. In terms of Cloud, who I think I would rank third, the Locke Sword, obviously I just told you it's the best non-elemental damage weapon for him in terms of overall DPS throughout the course of a fight. Also worth noting, by the way, in overall DPS, when you're calculating that out, when you're using that 12 ATB, the Zidane Sword is cast 3 times and the Locke Sword is cast 4 times. And the reason why that matters, even though we already said, right, the Locke Sword is more damage, right? By default, it already is more damage. That's just the fact. The difference is that now when you cast this 4 times, you have 4 times to crit, right? Versus 3 times to crit. And so like that means the overall DPS for Locke Sword is much higher, right? Because when you do crit, that damage is a huge increase. And so being able to have an extra chance to crit does make a difference in most long fights, right? And for most of the fights that you're trying to bring in non-elemental damage, specifically non-elemental damage, which has not been very frequent, but it does exist, right? It is a long fight, right? So being able to have that extra opportunity to crit is very important. It does add up over time, and that is worth noting. However, Cloud is still one of the weaker characters in the game in terms of overall DPS, in terms of the attacker role over speed rolls. He is one of the weaker ones. He is still fine if you have Cloud outfits and you have Cloud weapons. If you have his Murasame outfit and you have his Murasame at OB10, and you have his what's it called, the stream slasher or the stream saber or something like that. I forget what it's called, the slashing saber, whatever it is. His ice weapon. If you have his ice weapon available and you have that at OB6 plus, if you have his sky splitter at OB10, getting this weapon increases the value that Cloud will bring to your team, right? That does have value. I think that overall it's a little bit weaker than the other two we discussed, but it is still good. It does still make Cloud useful. It does make Cloud more helpful, and it does, you know, provide value. Tifa, on the other hand, the outfit's not good for her because it's just generically just okay. The Sabin claws themselves have been outclassed by the Daffodil gloves at this point, and even on the non-elemental stages, there are better weapons and better options available. Unless they're resistant to one of those options, you're usually using that over this. You've likely gotten a set damage weapon either between the Umbral Blade, the Blade of the Worthy, the Bahamut Greatsword. There are other options to even do the flat damage in the area of effect. I simply don't think this is worth it. I think if the buff went to high and the ATB was 3, which would make this really strong, right? But I think even then, I would struggle to find builds where I would want it, right? I'd rather my support increase my stats. I'd rather just put the exploit weakness on and move on. Now, I will say, all of that said, I have not looked at the featured banner yet, and I did see that it said exploit weakness for your entire team. And if you have an ability to increase or give Tifa exploit weakness separate from the, you know, her casting it herself, and the percentage is reasonable or good, then I could see her using this over the exploit weakness weapon. So this video is going up before I've even looked at that featured banner. That could change how I feel about the Sabin gloves. I will tell you that outright, even if that is the case, even if the Yuffie exploit weakness weapon gives your entire team 50% exploit weakness damage, right? And it's the more efficient and better way to do exploit weakness on your party, I would still very rarely use this weapon over like using an area of effect, physical attack or magic attack increase, at least in my immediate thoughts. I may change that. I leave room for, you know, for growth, I suppose. But of the 4 weapons on paper, without looking at the featured banner, I assume that this is still the weakest of the 4, which is unfortunate again, but it is what it is, right? So in terms of the stamp card, you are going to be able to get these medallions, which helps you get another outfit. I will tell you that these 2 slots here that give you the guaranteed weapons, that is cool that you can just kind of go in, right? But what's also cool is if you just want like 1 copy of the Terra Rod and 1 copy of the Locke Sword, you can just get to the 6 stamp, get your 1 copy each, and move on, right? Which is dope. If you go through the rest of this, and you'll be able to get enough of the medallions to pull something from one of the old outfits from the shop. If you're trying to buff up your Cloud and you want to get the Murasame outfit, this is a great opportunity to just put 2 Locke Swords on here, go all the way in, get either Aerith or Sephiroth's outfit, and then get Cloud's outfit using the tokens for the Murasame outfit. That's an option. If you're interested in that, I'll double check that really quick just to make sure. Where is it's 11th. Yep, here we go. So you can get the Murasame battle garb from the exchange. So that's an option, right? If you want to pull for Sephiroth and you want to try to make Sephiroth your new main, you can pull through on all those stamps, get yourself a couple of Edgar's Coiled Blade, and also picked up Sephiroth's Frostblade Arcanum. I will tell you that if you got the Frostblade Arcanum, ooh, you know what? Let me rephrase. Let me go back. I'm going to say that the Sephiroth outfit is not quite as good as I was thinking. I did forget he got an Omni Arcanum. He got an Omni Arcanum, right? So if you have the Omni Arcanum, that makes this a lot less valuable, right? Because that 30% that you're getting from the Omni Arcanum is fine, right? Obviously, the 20% defenses is good, but that outfit provides basically the same amount of value, right? 5% damage does matter, but like not that much at the end of the day. I don't think that would make me put Cloud ahead of him in terms of the outfits, because Cloud's outfit's not very good at all, and neither is Tifa's in terms of just raw stats. But yeah, I'd be a fool if I didn't at least go back and mention that. Oh, and by the way, Princess Guard, the ultimate weapon in this, just to briefly cover this, the ultimate weapon for this banner is amazing. I've seen people that are able to get like ridiculous guild battle scores, ridiculous battle ranking scores because of that jubilation effect. That ultimate weapon is very, 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 very good. So pulling towards that to get the ultimate weapon, pulling towards it to get the extra outfits, pulling towards it to get the very, very good weapons, right? All of it's great. You can't go wrong. It's very, very good. The one thing I do want to check is the wish list. I want to make sure they are featured. That's good. Okay. Okay, that's good. So that means that all of these weapons are going to have higher odds, which is good. They'll all be at 1%. And then your wish list weapons will probably be at what? They're going to be at like 0.8, I imagine. Oh, 0.4. Wow. Yeah, so your wish list weapons are definitely really, really low here. So whatever you're for the wish list for this, if you're pulling on this banner, for specifically one of those characters, wish list items that make sense with those characters, right? So for Cloud's banner, for the wish list, I would include Sky Splitter, which is his fire damage weapon. I would include Murasame, which is his lightning damage weapon. I would include Holiday Blade, which is not helpful with the Locke sword, but it is a very, very good weapon for Cloud and his best elemental damage, period, in the game. So you'd be a fool not to at least give that a pull. There is a world where you can convince me that Mystic Sword is worth having on your wish list, just because this is actually a very good debuffing weapon. I don't see Cloud ever willingly debuffing like on purpose. However, it does make for a decent offhand weapon for his magic build because it has split R abilities, which is nice. So specifically for the Holiday Blade build, this is fine in the offhand. It's nice to have a debuff available, but it's, you know, it's good, not great. And then any sub weapons that pump up those elements, whether you're looking for something that helps like buff your fire damage, buff your physical attack, you know the drill at this point, right? You go pull for Starwater Integrity if you need a physical attack increase. You go pull for, Luminary Sword if you want to have the fire damage increase, etc. Right? You know the drill. For Tifa, again, I don't recommend pulling for her at all, but if you are going to pull for those weapons, you're just pulling all of her elemental weapons, which are just these first 4, right? Three of the 4, right? Shell Knuckles, Bunny Gloves, and Holy Flame Gloves are all very, very strong elemental attacks, and then Saving Gloves would obviously pair very well with these. I guess you could convince me that Bunny Gloves isn't worth pulling for, just because simply the Feathered Gloves already give her a water damage increase and a magic damage decrease. I can't see the Saving Gloves being more useful to pair with the Bunny Gloves, which also, by the way, increase her magic attack, which makes the Saving Gloves fairly useless. But if you're pulling for Tifa for whatever reason, make sure you have all 3 of those weapons on there. You could also convince me that the Motor Drive is worth being on there. I will tell you that this was completely outclassed by Tifa's last win weapon, so if you pulled on that Ever Crisis Academy banner, don't include this. This is just not useful anymore for Tifa specifically. And then again, sub weapons that go with those. For Aerith is pretty cut and dry. Again, I just put whatever wish list items you want on there. I would put all of the new weapons on there. So the Glen Pirate's Glaive, the Mithril Slasher for Angeal, the Rifle of the Hunt, the Blade or the Sword of the Hunt for Zack, not this, the Dragoon Lance, right? Like whatever you want there, or any supportive weapons for Aerith, right, is also good. And then for Sephiroth is actually a little bit more pointed because it is a water damage banner, specifically for water damage. So you're going to want to look for water potency weapons, right? You're looking for Personal Style, you're looking for Orthodox Raven, you're looking for, that's Sephiroth and Matt specifically. You're looking for the Serpent Eater, which is a Lucio weapon, which is HP and water potency. The aforementioned Feather Gloves for Tifa, which give water potency and attack, right? This is a very good sub weapon, very, very good sub weapon for magic, etc. right? Stuff like that. You don't want anything that has magic attack, so avoid things like Bunny Gloves that give magic attack. You're looking for things that have attack and HP, magic ability potency, the works, right? Crystal Megaphone is also another good option, right? Because it has attack and magic ability potency. We showed that off in the guild battle. It's this one, right? Yeah, that's a really good option as well. Lots of really good options here. Stay flexible when it comes to that kind of build. But yeah. So yeah, other than that though, like I said, of those 4, I really don't think, do I recommend people pull on this? Let me think. The Terra Rod is legitimately worth it. Like legitimately worth it. And if that only takes you 2 pulls to get through the stamp card, to get that one pull and have this Terra Rod, this is worth having on your account. If you don't have Terra Rod, having one copy of this is helpful. Obviously, these are limited weapons, so it'd be nice to do at least one pull to try to get a 3-star copy of each. This, with all 4 weapons being on one banner, you can't guarantee it, right? You just can't. So I think that if I was able to get the top 3 here, I'd be fine just leaving and moving on. I'm not super, again, convinced that Sabin's Claws is necessary at this point in the game. But yeah. I think in general, I would probably advise getting the Terra Rod and moving on. Most of these weapons have been outclassed at this point, outside of the Edgar's Coiled Blade and the obviously the buffed weapon for Cloud. Even Aerith's weapon is good, but it's not like, it's good in the situations that it is, right? It's situational, but it is very good. So it's tough to say skip because a lot of these weapons have their uses, but it's definitely a comparison thing, right? Like the Limit Break banner for Matt is out right now, and this weapon is so good to have to pull against. So like if you haven't gotten the Daraplatis at this point and you haven't gotten this at a decent overboost level, like this is a very, very good weapon that's gonna matter for a long time in this game. And so it makes it very hard for me to say go ahead and pull on this crossover banner if you haven't taken care of this yet, right? This is absolutely the priority over that, for sure.